Good morning, everyone, says Miss Aditi. So nice to hear that. Good morning, Miss Aditi. How are you doing? I'll just send a message to my folks on WhatsApp and then we will begin the show that we deserve. We deserve it, right? So there we go. Yeah. 85th episode. Episode number 85. We're set. I hope you can hear me properly, Miss Aditi. I hope everybody can hear me. I'll check myself on LinkedIn. LinkedIn doesn't get much of engagement on this live stream thing. Even though most of my reach is on LinkedIn, I like so many people on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn gets like 6 people, 5 people at any moment of time. YouTube, on the other hand, has like average engagement of over 12-13 minutes. So anybody who comes on YouTube watches for at least 12-13 minutes. LinkedIn, not so much, which is strange, very strange. But let's begin. Bum 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 bum. The show that we deserve. It's that good. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, we gotta follow tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck. A lot of good luck. It does that every day without fail. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I'm having hot water with some black pepper in it. Really helps. And here we go. Beautiful. Sublime. Let's do it again. So nice. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we are in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. So, there's a lot of chatter on the GST rate cuts, the GST rationalization, the cutting, going away of the 12%, 5%, 18%, and then 40%, as we discussed yesterday. So, basically, cars have been at, even the small cars have been at a GST rate of 28%, right? And viewers of Thinker's Frequency know that small cars haven't been selling well, right? And small cars, without small cars, the Indian car market cannot grow. So we've discussed how Indian car market has been at a stagnant 4 million play. It has not been able to grow since past 3 years, which is a big worry, right? In fact, there's a decline which is happening as far as the absolute number of car sales is considered. 66% of the Indian car market is essentially the SUVs and so on and so forth, which is bad news because the volume will always come from small cars. Uh, Uptick in the number of small cars sold signals affordability at the bottom of the pyramid, which is very, very important for the country. So you do not need or you do not want to see big cars selling more at a smaller base and small cars not selling at all, right? Because that'll signal that even if the country is making money, the country is not making money in a holistic fashion, right? The country is making money in a very select pockets, in very select pockets, and that's always a bad news, right? So what these people have been saying is that the GST rationalization will bring hashbacks to 18% GST slab instead of the 28%. Well, the big cars, will go up to 40%. Large cars and SUVs are likely to face the special rate of 40%. So this is going to help a lot. And this will be very good news for somebody like Maruti, right? Because as the bottom of the pyramid stopped selling, Maruti started struggling, right? And that's a big problem. So this will be uh, great news. Electric, by the way, is has a GST of 5% compensation slash nil. Petrol up to 1200 cc faces 28% GST plus 1% cess, 29%, which is gonna come down, right? And then 1500 cc plus will be up at 40%, and then cess and so on and so forth. So there'll almost be like a 50% tax here. So that's that. Tobacco is looking at an even heavier duty of 40%, and then cess, so up to 53%. And states want their share as far as tobacco levies are considered. So that makes sense. By the way, WHO recommendation for tobacco tax is 75%. So India is still taxed at a much lower rate as far as tobacco is considered, compared to the rest of the world. So that's that. Let's move on. This is going to be a continuous story. So, when you observe the stream of stories that are going on in the business and finance world, just what happens is there's a mother lode, okay? Let's say there's a country and there's the world, okay? That's the mother lode. Now, the mother lode starts giving tributaries, right? Small rivers of stories. Now, some stories just live and die. They're like fireflies. So they're not really continuous stories. But some stories, they have a very, very long tail of news because a lot of second order effects keep happening, right? So let's say if the government looks at GST revision, this is going to be a long story, right? And long stories sometimes get boring, but the value where you derive the most value as far as observing the world is considered is with these long stories, that how they pan out. So that sort of makes a lot of things happening. So while they're boring, that we discussed GST and how does it matter and so on and so forth, it does, unfortunately. Speaking of boring, I read a huge article with the CMD of L&T, chairman and managing director, Larsen and Toubro. Super boring, no insights. I read it, so you don't have to. Moving on. Mr. Jaishankar to take center stage take stage at ETWLF Visa Summit, World Leaders Forum conducted by Economic Times. He's going to be talking about China and India and US and Russia. Basically, EAM things, and that is no surprise to anybody. India is also going to be picking its vice president candidate. But who cares about the vice president, right? Honorary title, not of much consequence, not very interesting. Moving on. Amidst US tariff heat, PM bags for Atmanirbharta, right? This is an ongoing story as well. We discussed how they're trying to boost the consumption. We also talked about India's consumption share in the GDP, which stands at around 63%, right? And with robust consumption, India can actually look at offsetting some of the losses which tariffs like US. Now, US is India's largest trading partner, and so you cannot offset US. It's the world's largest economy right now, and we almost export like 80-90 billion dollars worth stuff to US. And the way to diffuse that is using other markets. So you start looking at other markets which can absorb some of the tariffs, or let's say some of the losses that you're going to get from the US market. Or what you do is you start spreading your manufacturing facilities outside the country. So you start deleveraging from India. So what China does to handle China plus one strategy, India starts doing to, you know, protect itself. So Indian companies start going outside, go to Africa and other places to start, making stuff there so that they can avoid the tariffs. That's number two. Number three, you can essentially support the entrepreneurs, support the small businesses by better credit facilities, lower insurance premiums, and so on and so forth, some sort of incentives that you can do. Number three is that was number three, that you can support something. Number four is essentially tying up with other countries which can offer some sort of investment support to offset the tariff loss. Not just a trading relationship, but an investment relationship. So all of these four or five things that the country can do, it's trying, and all in the name of Atmanirbharta, which is a beautiful goal, but very difficult. Very difficult. Moving on. A lot of political chit chat, which we don't like to discuss because it's boring and it's dumb, it's stupid, right? And no point listening to stupid stuff. Man, Indian political discourse. If you read one of this such articles, you'll be like, God damn it, man, these people are idiots. And the kind of stuff that we discuss, it's just extraordinary. So right now, the biggest battle that's happening in the political space is whether illegal, aliens, that is, illegal immigrants who've been voting, through dubious means and dubious IDs, should be allowed to vote or not. So that's just imagine the level of conversations. This is dumb to another level. Infra push to boost reality sector in outer Delhi. So as we know, Delhi is looking at some sort of expansion, if you can call it that. So uh, origins of Delhi, if you look at Delhi, there's Central Delhi, there's Old Delhi. Old Delhi had Central Delhi, Karol Bagh, and all of these places started developing. Then this grew. Then came the first sub-city project of Delhi, which was Rohini, right? This was late 90s actually, late 90s or mid 90s. That's when Rohini as a place started developing. That was the first sub-city of Rohini. I'm sorry, yeah, of Delhi. That was Rohini. And then after Rohini developed, and it couldn't really be the place that it wanted to be, the second sub-city project began in Delhi, which was Dwarka. Dwarka was Asia's largest sub-city, world's fourth largest, and it became quite a model, for Delhi. So Dwarka developed in the southwest kind of a region. It developed, and now we are looking at Dwarka Expressway, which is essentially a segue to between Dwarka and Gurgaon. So that is leading to a lot of infrastructural push and an oversupply. Let's not call it oversupply, but a supply of real estate. So the realty market is really heating up because of whatever's going on in Dwarka Expressway, and big boost to peripheral markets, say realtors. They're just drumming their business up. No surprise there. TD sat, Appellate Tribunal for Telecom, guys, to take a call on try fine on telcos for failing to curb spam. So try and telcos have had some beef. Their beef has been around spam reduction. So telcos have unfortunately been over regulated because of the spam problem. So if you ever read spam, if you ever read that, oh, spam is a problem, who gets the belt? Telcos get a belt. Now telcos have been saying that we are getting pushed to the wall here. A lot of spam is originating on OTT apps, that is WhatsApp and other OTT apps, right? You should take a look at that. But that's very hard to regulate. So what can be regulated is regulated. So they have like a 141 crore penalty, which is under litigation. So Try said that you got to give it. These people said that we were making the platform, and there were a lot of things back in 2021. So that case is now going to TDSAT. Anti-spam platform was not in place then. So how are you giving us a retrospective penalty before anti-spam platform was made? That was something. Uh, a major deal, a private equity deal has happened between Carlyle and NAC Global. Now, NAC Global is a BPO kind of an operation in hospitality. This company has been valued at $500 million. Now, I was trying to find the revenue of NAC Global, this BPM in healthcare. These guys are specialists. I couldn't find it. Some people said that the revenue was like $22 million. There was some report of $77 million. I couldn't really get to the bottom of it. I just wanted to know what would be its revenue multiple, because it's a service business. Revenue NAC Global, a Florida-based revenue cycle management solutions. So revenue cycles management. Let me check it once again. NAC Global is getting a deal by Carlyle. What's the revenue? So I searched Google and I couldn't find a comprehensive result. So now so they were right. Okay. According to Traction, NAC Global reported an annual revenue of 219 crore. That's not a lot of money. In US dollar terms, the estimate from Grojo for NAC BPO shows an estimated revenue of 500 million. Now that seems more likely. Yeah. NAC Global and global operations of 534 million. So the standalone Indian entity obviously didn't get that deal. So at the moment, so this particular bit has gotten cleared. NAC Global, the company which has gotten this deal from Carlyle, is a $500 million valuation at a $539 million revenue. So less than a revenue multiple of less than 1. So that's what I was trying to find out. ChatGPT did a better job, by the way, just now. So I searched on Google. I wasted some time, a lot of time, and different sources couldn't get anything proper. But these guys actually sorted it out. The future of search is gonna be very different. Google is gonna get screwed. Samsung kicks off laptop production in India. South Korean company Samsung. India has been trying to incentivize these companies with PLI schemes and so on and so forth. Laptop production is a step in that direction. And, Ashwini Vaishnav, sir, Union Minister, after meeting with Samsung South Asia head, said Samsung continues to expand manufacturing its advanced technology devices in Bharat, driven by talent innovation. So, it's a very good news. Moving on. NBFCs are borrowing more overseas now. So, some borrowing action happening overseas. Now, this is because of the changing dynamics of borrowing. Okay. Now, these NBFCs are getting a better price, in a larger pool. Now, I'll tell you how this is important. First of all, they've been able to raise like 3.7 billion approximately in 2025 as compared to 1.6 billion in the whole of 2024. right? Uh, Now, why did this happen? Okay, this is happening because of a better pricing compared with international bonds, a quest for diversification of funding sources, floating late loan rates. Now, this is not understood by most people because it's slightly complicated how these rates, how these different kinds of lending rates happen. When we assume a loan or when we assume a borrowing, we assume like a bank loan, but NBFCs and in general corporates have a lot of options of raising debt, right? There's corporate bonds, there's very different kinds of techniques of raising money. So rate loans are mostly linked to 3-month SOFR. SOFR is secured overnight funding rate. Have become cheaper as credit spreads on offshore bonds have not fallen much. Now, listen to this. The credit on offshore bonds, okay, the credit spreads on offshore bonds have not fallen yet. So, since offshore bonds are not as attractive, this is picking up. Okay, floating rate loans are mostly linked to 3 months SOFR. Have become cheaper. Rate loans have become cheaper because offshore bonds spreads have not fallen, and this is why this is happening. So, a lot of banking mumbo jumbo, but it's very important to understand these things because this is half of the finance conversation, right? How this thing is happening. There's another story there that corporate bonds are gonna be less attractive from here on because of SBI's lending rate and that difference going narrowing down. So, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how we talked about corporates getting very interested in borrowing out of banks by issuing loan papers, right? Bond papers. So, if you're a big company, you can issue a paper, a loan paper, right? And that could have interest rates different from what banks can give you. Now that was getting very attractive because Indian corporates are lush with capital, right? Indian corporates are very in a good situation financially, and if you're in a good situation, you can raise through bonds. You don't need to necessarily go to the banks because banks have a slightly higher interest rate, right? Now that's gonna come down because that delta between the banking rate and the corporate bond rate is shrinking. So the incentive for corporates to basically raise money through bonds is shrinking. So that's another story. It's very relevant to this. Data shows this and that. SOFR rate eased about 100 basis points to 4.3% from 5.35% a year ago, reflecting cheaper borrowing costs for company. So rate relief, which is leading to this particular play. Overseas loans provide NBFCs with cheaper funds and reduce reliance on rupee liabilities. Moving on. Very important, right? Very important. Vodafone's road to reconnect. Vodafone is a perpetual dumpster fire. They have a new CEO. I feel very sad for the new guy. The last person actually tried his best. He reduced the banking, loan. Bank debt fell from 15,000 crores to 19,000 crores, 1,900 crores. Cash reserves rose and so on. But Vodafone is losing customers every day. Government is a 49% stakeholder at Vodafone. The company has basically got 2 lakh crores in debt, overall. So it's just the company is screwed, right? It's absolutely. Now the trouble is that the government cannot raise its stake. So it already bought Vodafone stake at an elevated valuation, right? The stock was trading at a lower price when government turned its debt into equity. So the government had a lot of Vodafone had a lot of government debt, right? Now what do you do? They couldn't have paid that money back. So what the government thought was we'll turn it into equity. And the price at which they turned it into equity was higher than the market cap of the company at that time. So government already overpaid for Vodafone stock because it couldn't have raised its shareholding from 49 to 51%, right? That's the cap. Otherwise, the company becomes a PSU, right? Now, the company is in such dire straits that it's not being able to raise more money. Promoter infusion is very limited, they're very, very, the roads are closing in. And I blame, you know who I blame? Viewers of Thinkers Frequency know. Whom do I blame on Vodafone's troubles? For Vodafone's troubles. Can anybody tell me that? Old viewers of Thinkers Frequency know who is responsible for Vodafone's troubles, major troubles, right? Let's take, I'll give you a second. Subscribers loss, yeah, we didn't miss out anything. Dumpster. Babu, no Mr. Patil, come on. You know the joke. You know the joke. Abhishek Bachchan. Abhishek Bachchan is to be blamed for Vodafone, right? You forgot. You forgot. No. Come on. Anyway, so the Vodafone story is dead. Let's not focus on it. Moving on. Little sleepy today. Well, good morning. I hope you had a... when you're sleepy on a Monday morning, it means your weekend went well, right? It means your weekend was very active, very happening. Yeah, there was a lot of action, which is not bad, right? Which is not bad at all. I hope you had a beautiful weekend. Measured optimism returns to markets. So the stock market, Indian stock market, might just be looking at some sort of... These people say that it's poised to be up a little, which is good news if you're invested. However, if you've been following Thinkers Frequency, we navigated through markets very well. When Nifty and everything went down, we were up, at least in the things that we suggested, right? So Nifty likely to trade in the range of 24,200 to 24,800, 2,500 being the key range. So that's pretty interesting. That's gonna be nice. Resistance at 24,800. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. So shrinking spread pulls corporates back to banks. This was an ongoing story. We discussed this a lot. With MCLR set to fall and bond yield steady, bank loans become cost effective. MCLR is marginal cost of funds based lending rate. Marginal cost of funds based lending rate. That's MCLR. MCLR falling. That's bank loans becoming cheaper. Now this is, if you remember, Mr. Patil, you would remember, or old viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember, how we talked about that banking is gonna have like a quarter or two, a couple of quarters. We discussed that as an ongoing story back in the 20th or 10th or 30th episode, something like that. We said it's gonna be a rough 2 quarters for banking stocks, right? A couple of quarters. And the third quarter, you're gonna see something happening, right? And right when we said that, at the 20th episode, if I'm not wrong, the banking essentially started tapered. There was a lot of talks on net interest margins. The earnings calls came out, which were all bad, right? And now it's gonna look good. In the next quarter, you're gonna see that banking has suddenly started becoming very, very, good. Yes, another correct prediction. Good. What's the time right now? It's 8:33. No, it's not 8:33. It's the time to look into the future. That's what we think about. Layoffs back in tech and IT industry. Is your job at risk? Spot the red flags and stay prepared. ET Wealth has written a story. So I read ET, I read Financial Express, I read Mint. I read also the online players like N-Tracker, primarily, new ones like ARC and so on and so forth. Everybody does very hard work, man. I have so much of respect for journalists, especially the business journalists, because there's very little scope for faff in business journalism, right? If you're talking business, no, Mr. Patil, I do not read Business Standard, unfortunately. Sometimes I stumble upon it, but I'm not a regular reader. So the beauty of business journalism is that it's intelligent by design, right? You cannot faff with the numbers. You cannot start taking sides when numbers are showing something else. And the thing is pretty black and white. And this is why businesses are simpler than politics. What is the hardest thing in the world? People say starting a company is very hard. It's one of the hardest things that you can take as an endeavor. Starting a company, building something innovative is very hard. But what's the hardest thing? It's the top of the pyramid, is politics. Because in politics, everything is fuzzy. Everything is fuzzy. There's no truth whatsoever. It's just one screen and two different movies. In fact, one screen and five different movies, right? So, all the respect to business journalists, but even more respect to whoever is in politics. Very tough play. And whoever is being able to do some good work. Moving on. Uh, Corporates back to banks. Talk. Taxman sets out to draw up a crypto code. You know, does India need a new law? Who should regulate? Is TDS too high? Have companies relocated due to tax codes? So India's stance on crypto was pretty clear. We never really warmed up to it. We never really warmed up to it. And the way to stifle the crypto play in India was the TDS, and also the tax on notional value of crypto, right? So they really taxed the shit out of crypto in India, and it became so unattractive that most of crypto action started going outside, right? Now, ideally, crypto's bull run would have stopped altogether because all countries essentially, were not very interested. Okay, the buzz around crypto had literally subsided, if you can say that. But then came Donald Trump in US, right? And he really like brought fresh energy to the whole crypto scene. And now Indian government and every other government is also having to look at crypto with a renewed lens, right? So stable coins and so on and so forth, right? Mr. Bhanu Pratap Singh writes, bro, explain me private equity funds, please. Now that's a very, very broad thing. Very broad question. You'll have to narrow your question down. But you'll have to narrow your question down, Mr. Bhanu. So that's what's happening with crypto, right? Not only are crypto gains taxed at income tax rate of 30, unlike the lower capital gains on stock, VDA traders can't offset profit with losses due to lower tax outgo, and so on. So 30% tax, and you cannot offset it with losses, and 1% TDS on every deal, right? So very complicated. That's why I'm asking you, buddy. No, but the question has to be, what happens is, Mr. Bhanu, that let's say if you're talking about private equity funds, venture capital is also private equity, early stage angel investment is also private equity, late stage private equity action like Carlyle and so on and so forth, like what we discussed right now, that they are looking at a stake in this NAC Global, that's also private equity. So you'll have to be, if you're looking at private equity funds, private equity is essentially companies which are buying stakes or outrightly buying companies, financial capital allocators who deal in private equity. That is stocks in private, capital. So that's what private equity means. They can buy listed companies, they can buy private companies, but it's essentially they're equity players in, corporate transactions. So that doesn't mean anything though. You've got to be very, very specific. So when you drill down, you find out, oh, what kind of private equity? Are we looking at PE funds like BlackRock, like KKR, and so on and so forth, or what? Moving on. Sellers for now, FPIs may rethink Indian equities. Now, this is also a continuation of a story. And why do you think sellers, FPI have been net sellers now? FPI's foreign portfolio investors, they've been going out of the markets, right? Now, FBIs have been selling their earnings from the Indian markets. My question to you is, why would they come back? This is a hint, something discussed like yesterday and day before and so on and so forth. Can you guess? We talked about this. Something to do with, better perception of Indian markets. What happened? Can you guess? Can you guess what happened? We talked about this. We talked about this. Why do you think? Why are these people assuming, or let's say predicting, that FPIs will be relooking at Indian equities? Okay, it's because the S&P ratings, right? India got a better rating, triple B negative to triple B. Now, triple B means better perception, better ability to repay, better interest loans. Miss Aditi is right. Triple B negative. You're so right. So, this is, and not just triple B, we also have GST change, right? And a lot of these things are essentially looking at some sort of renewed interests, or at least hope for renewed interest amongst FPIs. So FPIs made a killing in India, and Madam Nirmala Sitharaman also said that hey, it's not a bad thing that they're cashing out. It signals that the market is good, market is liquid, that investors can come. Again, Mr. Bhanu, private equity guys can come, and invest in India, and then take their earnings out. Right? That's very nice. It's nothing bad, but it is bad that FPIs turn net sellers for a lot of sessions. So for a long time, especially because of the US tariffs, 25% and so on and so forth, FPI sold $2.4 billion in the month as of August 14, as compared to 2.1 for the whole of July. So FPIs have been selling crazy, right? And they've been sellers for at a net level with this year. In the current calendar year, so far, they've invested about 4.5 in the primary market and 6.6 in the first 8 months of previous year. So 6.6 to 4.5. FPI's incoming cash has decreased while they've been cashing out like crazy. But these people say that, because of the GST, because of ease of deregulation and so on and so forth, we might just be looking at better times. Center weighs on extra duty tobacco, states seek a share. So we discussed this already. With cess gone, Center aims to retain 53% levy. States eye equal claim. GST Council to take call in the next week. Center is looking at 40% duty, high share tobacco taxation at 75% by WHO, but we are low. Average GST from tobacco products in the past 5 years is 51,000 crore annually. So the government makes like 51,000 crores per year through GST. 51,000 crores. That's such sad money, right? This is such sad money because cigarettes are clearly not good for health and they're essentially a sin product, but they're just allowed because they're taxed. So when we were discussing this earlier, a viewer of Thinker's Frequency very smartly said that, hey, why don't we just allow psychedelics as well? Tax the hell out of them. So just tax them and allow them, right? Tax all drugs and allow them, right? And the question is always, what about cigarettes? What about alcohol, right? The thing is, it's some things are relatively easy to regulate or let's say ban. Some things are just impossible to ban and regulate. The ease of banning and regulation also determines whether you can actually go for it or not, right? So you can ban something like LSD, or you can ban something like an MDMA and ecstasy because the means of production are limited, right? But tobacco, not so much, right? So that's hard to ban. And if you can't ban, what you'll do? You'll just tax it out. So that's that. Share of central excise duties on cigarette, only 8% of total taxation. So that's that. Refiners hold back on Russian crude orders, delay Russian cargo orders, fearing price shock if Russian sanctions kick in. US sanctions kick in. So 35% of India's crude requirements are met by Russian supplies. Okay, 1.7 million barrels per day. So refiners are actually looking at, they're being very careful. We talked about this. We talked about how IOCL was looking at things, how Indians were very careful with the spot market, Indian traders, how Nayara, the Rosneft and Reliance, joint venture was in a lot of trouble because of Russian oil and so on and so forth. So this is another story in the same direction. Directionally, it means the same thing. Timeline of risk: 1 month. Refiners place orders before loading. Tankers arrive at Indian ports. Delay in tenders. 2 month gap in supply chain certainty. So that's okay. Steel imports face safeguard duty. We had been talking about this. This is also an ongoing story. DGTR recommends duty of 12 to 11% to shield local industry. So obviously, every country's steel manufacturing is very sacred to it. We can all stop the steel production. You know what? The whole world can stop the steel production because China is making more steel than the entire world combined, and China has an oversupply of steel. So much of supply that the countries have to protect their steel industry with dumping duty, because China can like serve everybody steel, right? And it'll not be a problem. However, that's not good for any country, right? Because with steel is the backbone of countries, every country. So you've got to protect your steel industry, which is exactly what these people are doing. Final imposition of a safeguard duty on flat steel products for 3 years to protect domestic. So earlier, first year is going to be 11%, 12%, then it's going to come down to 11%. Now you'll ask why the tapering, why high initially and then tapering down? Because this particular time, when the tariff is high, you give the domestic producers a chance to recalibrate themselves and start making this stuff, right? And then you decrease it so that you don't disturb the global norms of, let's say, being protectionist and so on and so forth. So safeguard duty: government imposes 12% provisional duty for 200 days, April 2021 25. Yeah, flat steel imports, finance ministry to decide on imposition. We've done it. Let's move forward, right? Localism is the new globalism. That's the story. Banks are fast warming up to UPI credit line for small value loans. So companies like Paytm, companies like PhonePe, and banks which are indirectly related to these transactions, right? The UPI transactions, they're looking at new to bank customers essentially and offering them small credit lines via UPI apps. So this is good news for the banking play. This is good news for the aggregators as well, because they'll get some sort of commissions as far as bringing the loan is considered. And even though these unsecured small value loans to new to bank customers has always been a bad idea, a lot of delinquencies, a lot of problems, this seems to be a new field. Now I was talking to a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, in music. So I talk to very different set of people, right? As an entrepreneur, I'm talking to people who have like raised like $50 million and so on and so forth. Those conversations are very different. And as a musician, I talk to people who are always in dire straits as far as money is considered. Like there's no money in music, right? So they're always in dire straits, right? And I have both of these conversations with equal depth. So these people rolling in money, they don't know what to do with the money they have, right? And these people are like living day to day, and they don't have expenses to meet today, right? They've got to give the rent today, and they're short of like let's say 10,000. So one of my friends, as a musician, he took a lot of loans, like about 10-12 lakhs in credit card debt. You know what? And he just didn't pay it back. He didn't pay it back. So what he did was he took the debt, and which is something I didn't know about, by the way. So he took the debt, didn't pay it, let the thing get spoiled over, and then when the bank figures out that this loan is a bad debt, they talk about settlement. It's like a stressed asset deal, but at a very, very small scale. So let's say if you've borrowed like 10 lakhs in all, one bank has 3 lakhs, one bank has 2 lakhs of yours, one bank has so on and so forth. And what they start talking about is they are willing to let go of the loan at like 30%, 40%. Now this guy is negotiating with banks like, I can't pay you, so let's settle. Now the banks try to avoid that settlement for a very long time, as long as they can, right? So they don't want to settle their, let's say, 10 lakh loan for 2 or 3 lakhs. But this guy holds on, right? And this guy holds on, and he settled a lot of loans at a 30% kind of a thing. So he's like the big businesses do, right? They take very big loans, and when they become stressed assets, what's the recovery? Like 20%, 15%, some cases 7 8%. Now my friend, a musician, did the same thing. He essentially agents, right? So Mr. Tiwari asks, banks do send the recovery agents, right? How he dealt with them? So yeah, they do sell the recovery agents, and the job of the recovery agents is to get the deal sorted without the settlement thing. So the recovery agents try to extract the maximum they can. But if the guy says that, I'm gonna settle, I can't pay, so you have no option. And that's when it's a tough conversation, right? And so he essentially settled, and he has settled like 10-12 lakh rupees loans for like 3.5 lakh rupees. Now he said, and I said, man, that sounds very scary, man. Are you not scared? He said, what's the trade off? I'm trading my CIBIL off, right? My CIBIL score gets screwed. I can't take a loan after this. That's okay. I'll take a loan at somebody else's name, my parents' name. Their CIBIL score is tight, and if their CIBIL score is tight, I'm gonna do that, right? So that is awesome, right? That's pretty strange. So that is the case with a lot of, this is why, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how these banks and these NBFCs just slowed down the entire microfinance thing, right? They slowed down the entire new to bank customers thing. They just like, we're not gonna deal with this anymore. We're not gonna. That's why ICICI changed its whole stance as far as customer base is considered, because these customers are in a very tough spot, man. And when you lend to them, you're lending to them at your own risk. How is that story, by the way? Right? Mr. Patil says something. In this case, the outstanding amount must have been majorly interest. No, it's the principal. Forget about the interest. I'm talking about the principal. No. Credit card is 30. Now that's when the debt starts raking in, right? When you don't settle the interest, that's when it becomes an NPA, right? That's when it becomes the trouble. Yeah. You're from a different world. So musicians, we have it very, very difficult. So interestingly, I get an exposure to this world as well, and also the world flush with money. Moving on, H2 IT hiring may remain cautious with 3 to 5% growth. So that's that. Moving on, IT is not going to be hiring much. IT has changed its reason of being, right? Rise of the author is called. No more looking at bulk hiring, select skills. Even the fresher hiring is very subdued. And even Infosys model itself is like, we are bringing efficiency to the manpower. And that's strange. You used to run a manpower shop, man. You used to run a body shop. But 5 to 35% of manpower savings is what Infosys is offering to its people. Tailor-made measures key export sectors likely. So we've talked about this, that when US tariffs hit us, which were the industries which got hurt the most? Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency remember this, right? Which were the industries, very high labor industries, which got hurt the most as far as US tariffs are considered? Can you quickly name them? Like just a couple, if you can do that, that'll be great. Which industries were looking at some serious problems with the whole tariff situation with US, right? I'll give you like 5 seconds because there's a delay. There's some latency, right? No answers? Come on. Come on. You must have the answers. We know about this. So one was textile. Oh, Mr. Patil, you're right. Textile is one. Number 2 is diamonds and gemstones and so on and so forth. Now, the beauty is, or the trouble is, that textile is a very, very heavy on manpower kind of an industry, right? Textile hires a lot of people, and all those people are like the bottom of pyramid people. They're like making 10-15,000 rupees a month. People who are stitching stuff. Now those people really need the supply. So what these people are saying is that credit lines, relaxed collateral based loans, guaranteed schemes to help with the tariffs. So they're especially trying to save the textile guys, the gemstone guys, and the heavy, even the other heavy on manpower people who are gonna get uh, trouble due to the tariffs. And it's not just tariff, by the way. It's not just tariff. These measures should always be taken. And what's the thing we talk about whenever something good happens, right? That why didn't you do it before? Now that applies here as well, like collateral free loans, schemes, some sort of guarantees, uh, easier insurance costs. All of these things really help exporters, right? Why is it a defense mechanism to a trouble, right? These things should always exist. China has all of these things sorted since 20 years, right? That's why Chinese exports are really killing it, right? They always killed it. Speaking of Chinese exports, Dragon hoarding its tech riches fiercely. So India was, with the deals, India was essentially looking at tech transfer deals, right? That we're just gonna, whenever you invest, it's gonna come with a tech transfer thing, that you're gonna invest money, but you're gonna transfer the tech, and that's when we'll allow you to invest. That was India's stance for a very long time. If you don't remember, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember especially that we talked about how India was talking about taking investments from China, but with tech transfer as a clause. Now what's happening is that China is really holding on to it, because China has realized that it has all the chips, right? If India gets screwed from US, right, China is the only player where India can go, essentially. Europe, not so much. And India will deal with Europe as it can deal with Europe. But if India is to deal with China, China has more leverage, let's say. So one of those examples is Hires bid to sell 48 to 50% in its wholly owned Indian operations has been delayed. So the appliance maker Hire, it was supposed to sell. Then there are another deal. There are many deals actually. Which was PG Electroplast hasn't yet disclosed the name of its partner for this project, but China's top compressor manufacturer Highly Group, all those deals are in a limbo because these people expect China to essentially change the terms of the game, right? Hire PG Electroplast and so on and so forth. Focus is on retaining tech and IP in China. Indian firms plans hit by these restrictions, and so on and so on. So it's gonna be a very tough conversation for PM Modi when he meets the Chinese delegation. We know what we got when Mr. Jaishankar went to China, right? Nothing. We got nothing but some slightly kadi ninda, mulayam ninda, not even kadi ninda, some mulayam ninda, right? So mulayam ninda won't do now, especially with the US situation. So let's see what Mr. Modi is able to do as he handles with China. As he deals with China. Third sender set to add 3.8 thousand GPUs to India cluster. Google's GPUs are one of the big ones that have got the order. So at the moment, how many GPU? India AI has got 1050 Google Trillium TPUs. Around 3850 will be added now. So a lot of GPUs getting added to the India story, which is very necessary. Very necessary. Speaking of Google's TPUs and other companies' GPUs, we said that NVIDIA's GPUs, right? NVIDIA's market position, or let's say NVIDIA's stock position, is not a permanent monopoly, right? That's what we said. There are a lot of companies might just be able to catch up to NVIDIA sometime, right? Because Nvidia's market cap is like 4.2 trillion, nearly over 4 trillion. India's GDP is 4 trillion. The company is pretty highly valued, and even though it's the center of the world right now, it's it looks fragile, as far as the market cap is considered. But that can be failure of imagination. But that's what Peter Thiel sir said, right? That Nvidia's position as a market leader should be temporary. So let's see what happens there. And this particular news is slightly in that direction, right? If Google TPUs are being sold and bought by a country like India amidst everything, it means that options are being considered. I'm not saying anything close to N1's or anything close to Nvidia's higher generation stuff, but still, if this is getting deals, you might just be seeing a lot more of them, right? Moving on, a lot of chit chat geopolitically. Uh, Zelensky, Trump, Mr. Putin, and so on and so forth. The lamest of them is that Trump gave Mr. Putin a letter written by Melania Trump, Madam Melania Trump, the First Lady. So she wrote a cheesy letter where she said, "In today's world, some children are forced to carry a quiet laughter, untouched by the darkness around them. Mr. Putin, you can single handedly restore their melodic laughter. In protecting the innocence of these children, you will do more than serve Russia alone. You will serve humanity itself." Like, god damn it. Right? But anyway, that's happening. We don't know what's going to happen. Putin has agreed, US claims that Putin has agreed to, let's say, give NATO style security for Ukraine, not NATO, but NATO style. So something in that corner. And Zelensky says that we cannot trust Putin. And just yesterday we talked about how Zelensky would not want this war to stop or to give any concessions to Ukraine, because then he might just get killed like Mussolini, right? But right now, the drone strikes are on. The drone strikes are on. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Applied materials suffer worst drought in 5. Okay. Amid US-China trade uncertainty, applied materials are suffering worst drought in 5 years. Applied Materials is a company, of course, and its stock is going down. Moving on. Isn't she conspicuously missing? No, she's everywhere. So she's sort of a private player. I am assuming you're referring to Madam Melania Trump. She's been like that, She's not been a very actively out there kind of a lady. She has an accented voice, right? The Slovakian accent. It's pretty deep in her voice. Even though she can speak like 6 or 7 languages, she can speak a lot of languages. But she's not really a very outspoken kind of a person. Also, she's not been treated very well by the media, right? Which is very sad. So that's that. Miss Akshaya responded to that question. Textile, pharma, and electronics. So Miss Akshaya, pharma and electronics, they're not getting tariffed right now. You're referring to a previous conversation. The industries which are getting affected, pharma and electronics, are right now not in that ambit of tariffs which the US has placed on India as of now. So just textile is the right answer. So I was saying that she was very mistreated by the media, man. They really treated her very badly. Jill Biden, the first lady before Trump was elected, she was like Dr. Biden, and she was everywhere. Melania Trump, Madam Melania Trump, has been like literally shunned by the media, which is not cool, but which is it is what it is, right? So that's that. Yeah, and we've covered everything yet again. This brings us to the end of the 85th episode of Thinker's Frequency. How was it, folks? Was it good? If it was good, I'm very happy because it was good for me. I loved it. I always love it. I'll always love talking to you guys. Miss Aditi, Mr. Patil, Mr. Bhanu, Mr. Tiwari. It was lovely talking. Uh, this brings us to the end of the 85th episode, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. Uh, I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. It's 9:05. You're gonna punch in anytime. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Take care and bye bye. Thank you for the great episode, says Miss Aditi. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you for being such a lovely audience.